All right. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Awesome.
My first question is just super basic and where the idea for running on empty came from.
Sure. I think, gosh, man, it came from like a lot of different places. I think it came with like a healthy fear of death from my entire life from growing up. And then I think, some of the main influences, or when you're trying to figure out what should my first film be, you could literally spend your lifetime thinking about that. So what I decided was I wanted to do something that was sort of paying homage to like the films I grew up loving that were kind of left of center. Like to name like first one, this is way back, but like The Man with Two Brains with Steve Martin, Five Easy Pieces with Jack Nicholson from I think the late 70s, and After Hours by Martin Scorsese, Punch Drunk Love, Paul Thomas Anderson, and then pretty much like any Charlie Kaufman film. Those were really kind of a lot of the people who would have influenced not just my art, but a lot of the way I think, a lot of my uh, humorisms kind of come off stuff. I don't know if you know the comedian Steve. Oh God, what's it? Stephen Wright
I don't think
from the
so.
80s. It was this very monotone comedian that had a very kind of weird sarcastic thing. But when you grow up watching stuff like that, it kind of then you see this movie and you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kier feels like the very perfect vehicle for that, like the very monotone for
Yeah.
Mortimer. Sorry.
Yep.
Um, you have a lot of experience in acting, writing, post-production, but like you said, this is your first feature. So what was surprising to you in making that leap from shorts to a full-length directing role?
Sure. I don't know if there was such a huge leap. I've been in and out of the film industry kind of my entire life, throughout my life. So I've been on sets. I've also worked as a producer. I've worked a lot in post production. I've worked as an actor. So it's kind of I was pretty much aware of the whole process. I guess what surprised me the most, at least on this one, was the huge gift I got for it being like such a really great shoot overall. I mean, really, everybody was amazing from the cast and our crew. We really felt like we were away at summer camp, like making art together. Um, and I think that really contributed to the final film. So that was sort of the biggest surprise is the fact that it went as smoothly as it did because I've worked on other films and just you're putting out fires left and right and this person isn't getting along or this person didn't show up and really we had none of that and we just really got to have fun and make art together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You say I guess you didn't really have any fires, but did you feel prepared, like based on your experience as a producer, to handle pretty much anything that came with you? Like there was no nerves going into this experience?
Not, it's weird, not really. One of the producers called me, I think the night before we were our first day of production. And I think he was more just kind of checking in on my mental acuity and seeing where I'm at. And I think the only reason he might have been nervous is because I was way calmer than he expected, I guess. But he did say one thing, and one thing that I've heard other people say before, and it's really what you have to think about as a film. One, you got to take yourself out of the equation. It's not about you anymore. It's about all of us. It's about everybody. And that's a huge help and huge weight off my shoulders. Um, so yeah, it was, the thing that I was told was, at the end of the day, it's just you and a camera and an actor. And, I've also, was making movies with my camcorder when I was 10 years old. And then just also being an actor and knowing what that's like. And you just think of it as the bare basics of, we're having fun. There's a camera, there's some lines. We know what we're doing. We got a bunch of other people who know what they're doing and we do it.
That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a high concept in terms of your story of the life day count and like a scientific test of figuring out when you'll die. For most stories, that's presented in like a retro futuristic uh, production design, but yours looked like suburban 1980s. So I was kind of curious if that was always in your head when you were developing the script or if it came from your production designer.
Yeah, I think it was definitely both. But for me, it was so as far as the location, I moved when I moved back to LA in 2012, I landed in Sherman Oaks and I just kind of stayed in the valley. And, I think it was also sort of a little homage to the valley as well. Plus it was great to get to shoot in places where, I drive past every day. But as far as the look, I mean, to me, I'm a bigger fan of making stuff that hopefully will stand the test of time, that somebody could watch this in 10, 20 years, and you don't have anything from like our current technology distracting you. So I was very cognizant of, try not to use phones or texting too much, or all of these things, and just kind of give it a sort of, I guess, timeless look. It could kind of be retro, it could kind of be current, it could kind of be a little in the future.
Hmm. It's funny you bring up the valley because when I lived in LA, I always felt like the valley was this like weird limbo purgatory world. And so I was very curious if that was a conscious choice to set it there because I read that you've moved around a lot. So you kind of have the ability to place it somewhere. And it's very
Yeah,
specifically in the valley. So do you also feel that way about the Sherman Oaks area?
it's weird. I think the valley's changed over time. Like it's much more hip now. It's kind of it's
Mm,
much more accepted as a place because LA got so expensive, so everybody kind of like went out there. It's sort of like what happened to Brooklyn.
mm,
And I lived in New York for a long time, and I remember I lived in like Williamsburg in the late 90s, and it was like a ghost town. It was sort of what you're thinking of as the Valley, and now it's like the hippest place in New York over Manhattan. The Valley isn't that hip though. But yeah, it was a cool say. Also, I think another factor too is that I think I was also inspired by like Punch Drunk Love, like
mm,
that took place in the Valley, and I think I saw that in the Angelica Theater when it came out years ago in New York City, and it was just funny to me how at the time that movie had inspired me or kind of touched me in such a way, and then I found myself 20 years later living in the Valley, and going back to work on movies, and so that was sort of another reason I kind of just wanted to pay homage and put the Valley in it.
yeah, you give good street cred to the valley. Uh, part of the film is about
Putting it
Mort.
on the map.
Part of the film's about Mort's job as a mortician and then the effort that they kind of put into the funeral planning and their fun spin on it. And so I was curious if you are just personally interested in the rituals of funerals and the rituals of people passing on, and that has kind of played a role in his character.
Yeah, so I guess the personal end of it is I always had like a good healthy dose of fear of death like my entire life. Um and especially as a kid. And when I think I was 10 years old, and my grandfather passed away, and we went to New Jersey to his funeral. And it was the first funeral I'd ever been to, and it was the first wake I'd ever been to. And I just remembered thinking like this was like very a little traumatic,
Mhm.
and not the way that I would want to be remembered or remember, somebody that I love or care about. And so that was sort of always in the back of my mind, I guess. And then I found, I don't know when it was, I'd come across some pictures online of what they were calling extreme funerals. So in the film, we call it adventure funerals. But it's really a thing. Like they will put a deceased family member on a motorcycle or in a car or wherever, and it kind of goes to the like more of the celebration of their life, which isn't really what how death is perceived or handled in this country.
Mhm. My last question for you, would you personally get your life day count?
Not unless I got something in return that was really worth it. Like in Mort's case, he needed a mortgage, he wanted a house and whatever, and so to him it was worth it. But probably not.
That's fair. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Congrats again on the film. It's really fun and
Thank
really
you.
lovely. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Tina. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.